2.5 years ago, when we first started the Possible event, I opened a brand new, the premier event for marketers in America and around the world. First time we'd had the event, I pointed out to the audience of 3,000 of my favorite friends in marketing that I believe the marketing profession is no further along than the medical profession was in the 1800s when they believed bloodletting was the answer that cured all that ailed you and prevented disease. Now, for those of you who don't know, bloodletting is the practice of draining blood from the body, as had been practiced for over 2,000 plus years, to cure people. The medical profession believed that draining blood out of your body would solve it. Now, granted, it made some sense, right? If I have phlegm, if I have, is there a polite word for it? Snot? Can I use snot? Does you know that? No? Translate? Not sure. No, doesn't know. She said no. So when I'm congested and I have the pressure in my head from a cold, they thought that draining blood, there was too much pressure, let's just relieve the pressure. How many of you think bloodletting's a good idea? No. He looked around to see if anybody put up their hands. No, it's nuts. It's insane. We know now that it kills. In fact, it doesn't just kill people. It killed the first president of the United States. George Washington died of bloodletting. They drained 40% of the blood out of him to heal him, and it killed him. Mozart died of bloodletting. King Charles died of bloodletting. People have died of bloodletting for thousands of years until the medical profession said, wow, that's a bad idea. And yet, I think that's where marketing is today. I'm sorry to say that to you. I told the doctor what I was going to say this morning. She gave me kind of a horrified look. She did. Somebody in the hallway said, ooh, you shouldn't say that to Turks. Now, let me be really clear. I first came here in 1981. I am that old. And I love Turkey from the first time I was here. I really do. I love the Turks. You're kind of like, I'm from New York. You're kind of like New Yorkers. You really are. And I love that. I love this country. I've been here a number of times. Melise was my first boss when I took over the MMA, if you don't know. Okay. But we're behind, people. And the MMA believes that it cannot continue. We have to stop this. We have to stop our own sort of bloodletting. Let me explain. Last year at Possible, I pointed out a stat that people had never seen. It's not just that the CFOs don't think we know what we're doing. It's not just that the CEOs don't think we know what we're doing, or the rest of the C-suite, or the board itself doesn't believe in marketers and marketing. We all know that. We won't admit it. And I'm a marketer, so I'm talking about myself as much as you. But here's the thing. We marketers don't like marketing. The Net Promoter Score for your marketing department is a negative 2%. Do we all understand Net Promoter Score? You understand what it is? Yeah, good. Net Promoter Score, right? How many of you love it? How many hate it? Leave the middle out of the thing. Negative 2%. Now, the good news is there are some marketing organizations that are plus 50% in Net Promoter Score. And this is, would you recommend your marketing department to a friend or colleague? That's in essence what the data point is. But this is where we are. We don't like it. We know there's something wrong, and yet I don't think we admit it. I don't think we acknowledge the nature of our business. You know this. This is your own data here. This is Turkey data. Chief Marketing Officer tenure dropped from 7 years to 2 years. I find that a little unbelievable, so I can't qualify the source of it. But apparently, you don't think it's good, and we know this. You know, you've had days to deliver results, CMO of the Month Club. I mean, that's not how this is supposed to work. And I love, you know, there's an organization, there's a headhunter in America who puts out the data about how, and right now it's gone from, it was 41 months before in America for a CMO to keep his job. It went to 37 jobs. And you know what they said? They came out and said, no, it's okay. The CMO came in and did the job that they needed to do, and then they can move on. That's just stupid. That's just stupid. That's not how the world works. This also from you, too. Apparently, too, Turkey has lost marketing budgets as a percent of sales. You have the same problem here. It's a worldwide problem. As Melise pointed out, MMA runs a lot of conferences, dozens of conferences around the world. I see the same thing all over the place. I talk to marketers in different countries all the time. We just fundamentally don't understand the underlying science of business. As a result, I've identified that as an affliction. That there are a series of things that plague us that we have not chosen to resolve and address. We're good at storytelling. We can convince almost anybody of anything. That is the nature of marketing. And yet for our own profession, it disrespects, I think, who we are. So here's the newest affliction, though, because the MMA, as Melise pointed out, has come up with a bunch of revolutionary thinking. I'm going to share some of that today. And I guarantee you that my CMOs did not know this until we started telling them 5, 6 years ago. We got on this pursuit of a truth and fact in marketing. Because we would create new things. It's not just that we don't know. That's one of the problems. But then do we have the courage and the ability to really act and to understand it? So here's the new affliction. The new affliction is that we are just too busy to do better. So I am here today to encourage you to not get caught up in being too busy to do better. Because it's hard. We're in the middle of our job. We've got a lot of things to do. I got to get this done, and then I got the kids at home, and I've got this situation and that situation, and everything that's going on, the pressure, and yet ultimately it disrespects the entire business of marketing. We perpetuate the trouble that we're in. And I grant you that many of you might not like the message that I'm sharing, but I am one of you. I think I'm running the MMA as my own bit of amends to the industry, to make good, because I could tell in my heart of hearts I didn't know exactly what's going on. Let me ask you this question. How many of you would go into the building that was built by an engineer who hadn't gone to engineering school? How many of you would go see a doctor for a medical condition who had not gone to med school? I work with the world's biggest CMOs, and less than 25% of them have a degree in marketing. There's no ongoing certification or sort of say like, here we need to learn more, we need to improve our skills. That doesn't happen in marketing. We learn from our bosses. But I'm sorry, I just told you, really all due respects, people, they don't know what they're doing either. And I'm not saying we don't have great things, and I'm not saying we don't move businesses, but we lack the scientific understanding of our industry, of really what makes marketing works at a fundamental level. We've not been trained to do that. It's not our fault. We just kind of got ourselves here, and yet we got to get out of it. Now, as Melise pointed out, MMA is about giving you hope. It's trying to find where there's value, to look for that, to bring a sense of truth. I have no bias to what I recommend. I don't sell the things that we do. It's just thought leadership. It's just available to you. Now, the challenge is, though, there are a lot of obstacles to this. So I want to acknowledge that for a moment before we get into that. In part, this sort of urgent overwhelms the important because we don't focus on enough of the importance. And I'd like to encourage you to think that maybe if we took a page from what the medical profession figured out, they created the Hippocratic Oath, right? By the way, Hippocrates believed in bloodletting too, by the way. The Hippocratic Oath says, in point number 2, it's a little small here to read, it just says that I stand on the shoulders of those who developed the science before me, and I add freely to that science in order to help humans, help people. That's basically what it says. I've summarized that. And that's my encouragement to you. Let's understand the science. Let's share the science. It's the whole point of an association like the MMA is to work together to lift everybody up. It's the primary goal. Now, I'm going to ask you to make a decision at the end here today, as I've kind of opened up. So I encourage you to sort of think of that and watch some of what I say here. So we believe that part of the answer here that there's a sense of power in knowledge, right? And how do we gain that power to be more right, to have more impact on the businesses? Because that's ultimately what it is. It's about helping the businesses. It's about helping the shareholders. It's about helping the C-suite. This is what's so funny about it. I believe that every CEO is compensated based on financial performance of a company, right? I mean, I can't think there's anything else. And yet we as marketers sometimes aren't oriented to what are we doing to produce the financial dynamics. Here are some of the things we didn't know that we do now. What is the value of brand advertising and marketing? What is the value of brand? I was pointing out to somebody, my board chair has a $3 billion US dollar budget for marketing. $3 billion to spend on marketing. And I guarantee that the conversation in any one of the C-suite executives or any one of the CMOs is to focus on brand and the value of importance of brand. And yet I couldn't explain, they can't explain to the CFO what that investment is worth. Until 3 years ago, MMA heard this problem. We said, why don't we know the answer to this question? This is a math problem. This is not a cold fusion problem. This is not a come up with something radically new in science. It was simply math. Now, the data collection is incredibly hard, especially my team who's now executed these studies. But we created a methodology, got it endorsed by the industry, and have now executed 2.5 studies so far. We'll do 4 in total. Each one of the studies is $1 million. These are expensive research to do. We now understand the value of brand. That if I run a brand campaign here, I now know for a fact that 9 to 12 months later, that campaign, those people who converted to brand, the people who had a different opinion in their mind about that company will produce $700 in sales. $100 here, $700 in sales. 7x. And yet we'd never been able to tell that because the methodology didn't exist because nobody had taken the time to develop it, and the MMA did. What's interesting about that, when we did it, Google came to me and says, we love that you're doing this. We really appreciate this research. We think it would be hugely impactful. The problem is we don't think you can actually pull off what you're doing. And we were like, that's fine. We'll take the risk. We're okay. And we spent $3 million doing that research. We now can say to the CFO, if I know that campaign, if we can measure that there's sales today, and I think it's 7x later, should we go forward? Now what decisions do the CMO and the CFO together make about how to invest the brand? Interesting about this, I don't have it in the slides here, but we also know the cost of acquisition when somebody converts their attitude towards a brand, the cost of acquisition goes down -85%. -85%, down 85%. Don't invest in just lower funnel. You must have brand dynamics. It's good for the health of business. Next, we also now understand the value of getting an organization right. We have been working with a team of professors for 8 years in the US, doing a series of studies and analysis tied actually to sales performance of the companies. And we know that when you get the org right, it matters tremendously for producing sales. The right marketing org produces higher sales rate, higher sales growth. Now, by the way, what most commonly goes on, let me ask you a question. How many of you are, there's 3 parts to this. You're just going to answer for one. How many of you just finished a marketing reorg, are in the middle of a marketing reorg, or about to start a marketing reorg? I bet you it's all of you. You don't have to put your hands up, I know, it's all of you. Everybody's coming in. And what most marketing reorgs are focused on is decentralization or centralization decisions or insourcing, outsourcing. Those 2 things have nothing to do with the performance of the company. Nothing. We've proven it. What does matter is the fit of capabilities to the marketing strategy. Problem is we don't even always agree on what the marketing strategy is or what's the role market. That's a whole nother point. This one's one of my favorite. There's a very popular thesis out there that says you should be doing broad reach campaigns and no targeting. That is unbelievably flawed thinking. The economics of that are insane. If you took and looked at simple math of that, you would know that. And yet, marketing doesn't really have the orientation to think in those kinds of ways. We don't really have an economic basis to the way we make decisions, and as a result, some people believe it turns out that broad reach, if indexed at 100, you can see with different types of targeting techniques here. Demographics is less than broad reach. That's really bad. I always knew demographics was dumb, but now I really know it. And by the way, this data is about 9 weeks old. This is brand new data we just had. We have created a new thesis around how to target. It's called the movable middles. Longer to explain than I will here. Happy to walk you through it if you're interested. Happy to help you execute a study if you're interested. We know that movable middles doesn't just beat all techniques, as you can see here. It crushes everything else. It focuses not on what are the external signals from a consumer, but what's in their brain. What is their receptivity to that brand? Again, more complicated to explain. And my most interesting one here, and this data is only about a year now, a year and a half old. We started to have this, obviously. What is the value of AI when used for personalization? Now, you'd have to kind of not be thinking to not realize that personalization isn't going to make a difference. But we now know that it's based on, it's plus 149% when you optimize using machine learning in this case in order to match personalized creative to actually cohorts to audiences. The new language here, by the way, you ready for this, marketers? If you didn't think we understood already, the new language here is that we're doing optimization through one-hot encoding and K-modes clustering. That's the machine learning language. That's part of what we need to learn to go forward to make our businesses stronger. And this is where my whole point comes from about we're too busy to do better. I took this to the board, and they said to me, a couple of them were like, well, we're busy, we have a lot of other things to do. I guarantee you as a CEO who is incentivized, financially incentivized to build the MMA business, right? Obviously I should be, that's what the board's done for me. If you came to me and you said, I could grow 10% of your business by plus 149%, by 2.5x, if you said that to me, I would not just drop everything I was doing that day, I would clear my team's schedule for the next month, and it's all we would do. It's all we would do. And yet marketing doesn't think that way. I see it again and again. I'm ashamed to say that my board has seen this information and not every one of them has adopted it. I don't know why. Well, I do know why. We're too busy to do better. We don't even understand, too, what quality. Frank Crossan, the CMO of Best Buy, called me a couple years ago and said, Greg, is there a standard for quality marketing measurement? And I said, Frank, I'm sorry to say there isn't. So we wrote one. So we put it together, we did it. It's on our website, you can just download it now. Incrementality, by the way, is the answer. If you don't understand that, you must get to that because otherwise we're not doing measurement that relates to business performance. But I think our business indictment is this. We all know that when the company's in trouble, the first thing they do is they come and ask to decrease the marketing budget. And we as marketers cannot tell the CFO, sure, that's fine. We'll raise the enterprise value of the company, we'll raise the valuation of the company by cutting marketing, lowering costs, but you can't explain what happens on the other side of that. And I guarantee you, unless marketing's really bad, and it's not having any impact on the organization, which is really a fail, that we're actually hurting the company long term. And we can't have that. We will have this formula in the next 6 months. We have figured out the ingredients of this recipe. We just got to figure out how to pull it together and do the math behind it. So listen, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of challenges. There's things you're up against every day. I get that. I got it. It's hard. The business is becoming incredibly complex, and it's not getting any easier. But anyway, we all know that, right? We all know that. You feel that every day. You feel yourself struggle to kind of keep up with it. I'm sympathetic to that. But that's really the primary focus of the MMA. Oops, pull it up. That's really the primary focus of the MMA is to really help you understand what this is. We need to make marketing matter more. And the good news, it's very possible. It's very, very possible. We have so much that we can do to improve, and I think the MMA is just starting this vision. In fact, I've said to people, I wish I was a lot younger, because the mission I'm on, I think, could take 20, 30 years. So I need you to work with me to accelerate. I need you to work with Melise and the rest of the MMA team to really accelerate that. And we know, too, from some basic analysis that we've done, that if you were just to execute the things that MMA talks about, just the things that we know already, we think we can improve the valuation of that company plus 10%. Plus 10%. If I come to you and I say, do you have a plan for increasing the valuation of your company dramatically? Because if you don't, we do. So take ours until you do on your own. That's fine. So Melise mentioned the think tanks. It's where a lot of our work exists. There's revolutionary thinking and all of that. I would encourage you to pay attention to that and take advantage of it as much as you can. And there's a whole series of agendas and things that we're working on that solve different problems. Maybe you don't have to do it all because it's hard. We've created a lot of body of knowledge now. But I encourage you to pick up some parts of it, to start somewhere to evolve marketing. We all need you to do that because we need every CFO and every CEO and every board member to say, oh my God, I love those marketing people. They're just really driving I shouldn't swear. They're driving the business a lot. I'm not supposed to curse here, I don't think. But here's the issue, gang. You ready for it? This is what matters the most. This is the one takeaway I want you to have today. Dale Carnegie, a pretty famous business leader from the mid-1900s in the US, said knowledge isn't power until it's applied, okay? So I can't just stand here and tell you about it. You have to do it. You have to execute. You have to activate against it. But that's what we're here for, to help do that. So you got to make a decision, right? For you today, this is the one thing I want you to walk away. This is why I want you to take this whole rest of the event, your whole experience today, and think about this and the things I've said and what you hear in the hall and the conversations you have. Are you too busy to do better? Or would you be willing to work with us to not be too busy? To try to find some little part of your day in all the other agenda items, the whole to-do list you have, and try to execute something that improves the power of marketing, because I'm telling you, there's so much room that we can do in that. I encourage you to join us in doing that. Thanks, everyone. I hope you have a great show.